At the wedding, my son said, "From this day on, you're a stranger to me. I choose my wife." I calmly smiled and withdrew my $70,000 check. The next morning, he was standing at my door. "I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled." I had raised Ethan alone since he was 6 years old. His father left us with nothing but a mortgaged house and a pile of unpaid bills. For 18 years, I worked double shifts at the hospital, picked up weekend gigs as a medical consultant, and skipped vacations so my son could have piano lessons, summer camps, and eventually a debt-free college education. By the time he graduated with his engineering degree, I had finally paid off the house and built a modest retirement fund. I was 64, tired, but proud. My son was going to have the life I never did. When Ethan introduced me to Madison 6 months ago, I wanted to like her. I really did. She was beautiful, blonde, polished, with perfectly white teeth and a wardrobe that screamed money. But something felt off from the beginning. The way she looked at my living room furniture with barely concealed disdain, the comments about updating my style and finally getting some help around here, the way she steered every conversation back to herself. "Mom, Madison's family owns 3 car dealerships," Ethan told me one evening, his eyes shining. "Her dad says I could work there, make twice what I'm making now." I smiled and said nothing, but my stomach tightened. My son had worked so hard for his engineering position. Why would he throw that away? The engagement happened fast. Too fast. 2 months after they met, Ethan showed me the ring, a massive diamond that must have cost more than my car. "Her parents are helping with the wedding," he said quickly. "They insist on paying for everything." Everything except my contribution. I had saved $70,000 over the past 5 years, specifically for this moment. It was supposed to be my gift to my son, a down payment on his first house, or seed money for his future. When I told him about it, his face lit up like a child's on Christmas morning. But Madison's face showed something else entirely. Calculation. The wedding was set for June at an expensive country club. Madison's family invited 300 guests. I was allowed to invite 12. When I asked about the seating arrangements, I discovered I'd been placed at a table in the back, far from the family tables, next to people I'd never met. "It's just how the layout worked out, Mom," Ethan said, not meeting my eyes. The day of the wedding arrived. I wore my best dress. A simple navy blue suit I'd bought for the occasion. Madison wore a gown that probably cost more than my first car. The ceremony was beautiful in that cold, magazine-perfect way. I cried, but not for the reasons people probably thought. At the reception, I watched my son dance with his new wife, then with her mother, then with her grandmother. The band played on. I sat at my table in the back, smiling politely at strangers, waiting for the moment when he would come ask me to dance. It was tradition, wasn't it? The groom dances with his mother, but he never came. Instead, Madison's father gave a long, booming toast about welcoming Ethan into the family and gaining a son. No mention of the family Ethan already had. No mention of me. I felt something crack inside my chest. Then came the moment with the checks. The best man announced that the newlyweds would be accepting monetary gifts at the head table. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked through that sea of expensive suits and designer gowns to where my son sat with his bride. I placed the envelope containing my $70,000 check on the table in front of him. "For your future, sweetheart," I said softly. Ethan picked it up, glanced at the amount, and his eyes went wide. But before he could speak, Madison leaned over and whispered something in his ear. His expression changed, hardened. He looked up at me, and I barely recognized the man I saw. Mom, he said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, from this day forward, you're a stranger to me. I choose my wife. The room seemed to stop breathing. I stood there, frozen, as Madison smirked behind her champagne glass. I smiled. Calmly reached down and picked up the envelope. I understand, I said quietly. Choose wisely. And I walked out. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my kitchen, still wearing that navy dress, staring at the envelope on my table. $70,000. 5 years of saving. 5 years of skipping dinners out, of driving my old car longer than I should have, of saying no to every small luxury. For what? For a son who called me a stranger? The sun rose slowly, painting my kitchen walls gold. I made coffee. My hands shook as I poured it. Was this real? Had my son really chosen a woman he'd known for 6 months over the mother who'd sacrificed everything for him? My phone buzzed. A text from my friend Patricia, who'd been at the wedding. Margaret, honey, are you okay? What happened? I didn't respond. I couldn't find the words. Around 9 in the morning, I heard a car in my driveway. My heart leaped. Maybe Ethan had come to apologize, to explain that Madison had pressured him, that he'd had too much champagne, that he didn't mean it. I looked out the window. It was Ethan's car. He was alone. I opened the door before he could knock. He stood there on my porch, looking disheveled, his tuxedo shirt wrinkled and untucked. His eyes were red-rimmed. Mom, he started. About last night. You called me a stranger, I said evenly. Madison was upset that you tried to make such a big gesture in front of everyone. She thought you were trying to upstage her on her wedding day. Her wedding day, not their wedding day. So you threw away your mother to protect your bride's ego? I asked. He flinched. It's not like that. Look, Mom, I came here to... Madison and I talked, and we think it would be best if you gave us some space for a while. Let us start our marriage without interference. Interference. I repeated the word like it was poison. You know what I mean. Madison's family is very close-knit, and she wants me to be part of that. It's important to her. And honestly, he looked away. Honestly, I think you're jealous. You're jealous that I have a wife now, that I don't need you anymore. The words hit me like physical blows. I see, I said quietly. And the money? He had the decency to look uncomfortable. Well, since you took back the check, I assume you didn't really want to give it to us anyway. Madison said it was probably just for show. Something cold settled into my bones. This wasn't my son speaking. This was Madison's puppet. Get off my property, I said. Mom, you chose to make me a stranger, so be it. But strangers don't stand on my porch telling me I'm jealous of the life I built for them. Get off my property. He left. I watched his car disappear down the street, and then I sat down and let myself cry. Not the gentle tears of a sad mother, but the raw, ugly sobs of someone whose entire world had just collapsed. But grief, I discovered, has a shelf life. After an hour, maybe 2, I ran out of tears. And when the crying stopped, something else filled the space. Clarity. I went to my computer and opened my banking app. That $70,000 was still there. Still mine. I had been ready to hand over my entire safety net to a son who didn't appreciate it, who didn't appreciate me. What else didn't I know about this situation? I called Patricia. Tell me everything you noticed at the wedding, I said. Patricia, bless her, didn't ask questions. Madison's family treated you like hired help, honey. Her mother told someone I was standing next to that she was relieved Ethan's mother wasn't going to be a problem. And Madison... Margaret, I saw her going through your purse when you went to the bathroom during the reception. My blood went cold. She what? I thought about saying something, but I figured she was maybe just looking for tissues or something. But now, Margaret, what are you going to do? What was I going to do? I thought about Ethan's words. Madison's family is very close-knit. I thought about how quickly he'd gotten that job offer at the dealership, how Madison had steered him away from his engineering career, how she'd isolated him from me. I opened my laptop and started searching. Madison Whitmore, her family, their dealerships. 3 hours later, I had my first revelation. The Whitmore dealerships weren't doing well. 2 were facing lawsuits over fraudulent financing practices. The family had money, yes, but it was old money running out fast. Ethan, with his engineering degree and my $70,000, wasn't a son-in-law. He was a solution to their financial problems. I picked up my phone and made the first call. To my lawyer. Robert, it's Margaret Chen. I need to revise my will. Robert Martinez had been my lawyer for 15 years, ever since I bought my house. He was thorough, discreet, and didn't ask unnecessary questions. Margaret, he said, when I sat down in his office Monday morning, are you sure about this? I looked at the document he'd prepared. My will, completely revised. Ethan's name removed entirely. My estate, the house, my retirement funds, my life insurance, everything, would now go to a scholarship fund for children of single mothers pursuing medical careers. I'm sure, I said, and signed it. And this is legally binding, Robert warned. If something happens to you, your son gets nothing. That's the point. He studied me for a long moment. Did something happen? I told him about the wedding, about Ethan's words, about the suspicious timing of everything. Robert leaned back in his chair. You think the wife is influencing him? I think the wife sees dollar signs. I need to know what I'm dealing with, Robert. Can you do some digging? Quietly? He shouldn't have agreed. Attorney-client privilege didn't really cover detective work. But Robert had known me a long time. He'd seen me work myself to exhaustion to give my son a better life. Give me a week, he said. That week was torture. I went to work at the hospital, smiled at my patients, came home to my empty house. Ethan didn't call, didn't text. It was as if I'd ceased to exist for him. But I noticed something else. My neighbors, the Hutchinsons, mentioned they'd seen a silver BMW drive slowly past my house several times. Madison's car. Is everything all right, Margaret? Mrs. Hutchinson asked. Is someone bothering you? Just family stuff, I said lightly. But I installed a doorbell camera that evening. The footage proved interesting. Madison had driven by my house 6 times in 4 days. Once, she'd even gotten out and peered through my front windows. What was she looking for? Robert called me on Thursday. Margaret, we need to talk. Not over the phone. Can you come to my office? I was there in 20 minutes. He spread documents across his desk. Financial records, public filings, court documents. The Whitmore family is in serious trouble, he said. The dealerships are hemorrhaging money. They've got 2 active lawsuits for predatory lending practices, selling cars to people who clearly couldn't afford them, then repossessing and reselling the same vehicles multiple times. They're facing potential criminal charges. I felt my stomach drop. And Madison? Madison Whitmore has a history. She was engaged twice before, both times to men with significant assets. Both engagements ended badly. One filed a restraining order claiming she'd stolen from him. The other just disappeared from social media and public records around the time of their split. You think she's a con artist. I think she's someone who sees marriage as a business transaction. And your son, with his stable job and what she probably assumed was a wealthy mother, he trailed off. She thought I'd be funding their lifestyle. More than that. Robert pulled out another document. I found something else. Madison filed paperwork to add her name to Ethan's bank accounts 3 days after the engagement. She's also been making inquiries about his employee benefits, his 401k, his insurance policies. My hands clenched into fists. There's more? Robert said quietly. I pulled Ethan's credit report, with his previous written permission from when he asked me to review a car loan a couple years ago. Margaret, he's taken out $45,000 in personal loans in the past 2 months, all of them used for wedding expenses and a business investment in the Whitmore dealerships. $45,000. My son was drowning in debt, and he didn't even know he was being used. I need proof, I said. Something concrete that will make him see what she is. Robert hesitated. Margaret, your son is an adult. Even if we show him evidence, he might not want to see it. Men in love, or men who think they're in love, they don't always think clearly. Then I'll make it impossible for him to ignore. I left Robert's office with a plan forming. But first, I needed to see just how deep Madison's deception went. That evening, I did something I wasn't proud of. I called Ethan. Mom? He sounded surprised. I've been thinking about what you said, I lied smoothly. About giving you space. You're right. I was being overbearing. I'd like to apologize to both you and Madison. Could I take you both to dinner? This Saturday? Silence. Then, let me ask Madison. Of course he had to ask permission. He called back an hour later. Madison says Saturday works. But Mom, this doesn't mean everything goes back to normal. We're still setting boundaries. I understand, I said. And I did. I understood perfectly. Saturday came. I chose an upscale restaurant, the kind Madison would appreciate. I got there early and had a quiet word with the manager, an old friend whose daughter I'd treated in the ER years ago. When Ethan and Madison arrived, I was already seated, smiling. Madison looked radiant and smug. She was wearing jewelry I recognized from photos of the wedding, pieces that had probably been bought with my son's debt. Margaret, she said, not quite warmly. This is a surprise. I wanted to clear the air, I said. I was out of line at the wedding. Ethan relaxed, visibly. Madison's smile sharpened. She thought she'd won. We ordered, made small talk. Madison dominated the conversation, talking about their honeymoon plans. First class to Bali. More debt, I thought grimly. Their apartment hunt. She wanted a penthouse. Their future. Then, over dessert, I made my move. I've been thinking about that wedding gift, I said casually. The check I took back. It was childish of me. I'd like to give you something instead. Ethan's eyes widened. Madison leaned forward, trying to look gracious, but failing to hide her greed. That's very generous, Margaret, she purred. I thought I'd help with the down payment on a house, I continued. But I'd need to see your financials first. Make sure the money is used wisely. I'm sure you understand. I worked hard for it. Madison's face froze. What kind of financials? She asked carefully. Bank statements, credit reports, debt obligations, standard stuff. My financial advisor insists. I smiled warmly. Just to make sure my investment is protected. Investment? Ethan looked confused, but Madison understood perfectly. Her mask slipped for just a second, and I saw pure rage flash across her face before she composed herself. That won't be necessary, she said coldly. We don't need your money if it comes with strings attached. Madison, Ethan started. No, Ethan. Your mother is trying to control us. This is exactly what I was worried about. She stood up. We're leaving. Ethan looked between us, confused and hurt. But he stood up too. I'm sorry, Mom, he said quietly. I thought you'd changed. They left me sitting there, but I wasn't upset. Because I'd gotten exactly what I needed. Confirmation. Madison didn't want scrutiny. She couldn't afford it. And now I knew exactly what to do next. Monday morning, I walked into the police station. I'd thought about this carefully. What Madison had done, going through my purse at the wedding, was minor, but it established a pattern. Combined with what Robert had uncovered about her past, about the restraining order, about her suspicious financial maneuvering with my son, I had enough to at least file a report. Officer Davis listened to my story, took notes, and was sympathetic but realistic. Ma'am, what you're describing is concerning, but it's not necessarily criminal. Your son is an adult who made his own financial decisions. But she has a history of this, I pressed. She targets men, drains them financially. Do you have proof she's stolen from your son? Forged his signature? Committed fraud? I didn't. Not yet. Let me file this as an informational report, Officer Davis said. If anything escalates, we'll have it on record. And if your son wants to come in and report identity theft or financial abuse, we can help him then. It wasn't much, but it was something. A paper trail. When I got home, there were 3 messages on my phone, all from numbers I didn't recognize. I played them. The first was a woman's voice, professional. This message is for Margaret Chen. This is Anderson and Associates Law Firm. We represent Madison Whitmore Chen. Please contact us regarding a legal matter. My blood went cold. Whitmore Chen? She'd hyphenated their names? Ethan had never mentioned that. The second message was similar. The third was different. A man's voice, smooth and vaguely threatening. Mrs. Chen, this is David Whitmore, Madison's father. I think we need to have a conversation about your behavior toward my daughter and son-in-law. Call me. They were circling the wagons. I called Robert immediately. Don't return any of those calls, he advised. Let me handle this. If they've actually filed something, they'll serve you papers. Until then, don't engage. But the psychological warfare had just begun. Over the next 3 days, I received dozens of calls from unknown numbers. Some were silent when I answered. Some were hang-ups. My doorbell camera caught Madison's car driving past my house at odd hours, midnight, 3 a.m., dawn. Then the letters started arriving. The first was from the law firm, officially requesting, I cease and desist all contact with Mr. and Mrs. Chen and refrain from spreading defamatory statements about Mrs. Madison Whitmore Chen. Defamatory statements? I'd barely spoken to anyone about this, unless I called Patricia. Did anyone contact you asking about what I've said about Madison? Yes. Patricia sounded alarmed. Some lawyer called yesterday asking if you'd been making false accusations about Madison. I told him to go to hell, but Margaret, what's going on? They were building a case, trying to paint me as a jealous, unstable mother harassing her innocent daughter-in-law. The second letter came from Ethan. Not a phone call, a letter, stiff and formal, probably dictated by Madison or her lawyer. Dear Mom, your continued interference in my marriage is unacceptable. Madison has shown me evidence of your attempts to damage her reputation and turn me against her. I'm asking you one final time to respect our boundaries. If you continue this behavior, I will have no choice but to pursue legal action for harassment. Ethan, I read it 3 times. My son threatening to sue me. I should have felt devastated. Instead, I felt energized, because desperate people make mistakes, and Madison was clearly desperate. Robert called that evening. Margaret, I need you to come to my office tomorrow. I've found something. The next morning, he showed me bank records, not Ethan's, but Madison's. Her previous account, from before the marriage, obtained through some legal channel I didn't ask about. Look at this pattern, he said, pointing to a series of deposits and withdrawals. 6 months before she met Ethan, Madison received a $30,000 deposit from an A. Morrison. That's Andrew Morrison, her previous fiancé, the one who filed the restraining order. She extorted him, I breathed. Probably threatened to make false accusations unless he paid. Look, after she got the money, she withdrew it all in cash within a week. Then, 2 months later, she met Ethan. She was hunting for the next mark. Robert nodded grimly. And there's more. I contacted Morrison through a colleague. He's willing to talk to you, off the record. He wants to warn your son. This was it. Real evidence. A witness. But before I could meet with Morrison, everything exploded. That afternoon, while I was at work, the Whitmores showed up at my house. All of them, Madison, Ethan, and David Whitmore. My doorbell camera caught everything. They pounded on my door. When I didn't answer because I wasn't home, David Whitmore shouted loud enough for my neighbors to hear, "We know what you're trying to do, Margaret. You're trying to destroy your son's marriage because you're a bitter, controlling woman. This ends now." Madison added her own performance. "How can you be so cruel? I love Ethan. All I've ever wanted is to make him happy." But it was Ethan's words that cut deepest when I watched the footage later. "You're going to die alone, Mom, and you'll deserve it." My neighbor, Mrs. Hutchinson, had actually gone outside to see what the commotion was about. The camera caught her asking them to leave, threatening to call the police. They did leave, but not before David Whitmore left an envelope wedged in my door. When I got home and opened it, I found a formal letter accusing me of harassment, stalking, and defamation, with a demand that I sign a document agreeing to never contact Ethan again and to pay $25,000 in damages for emotional distress. It was absurd, legally baseless, but it was also terrifying because it meant they were willing to lie, to manipulate, to twist everything. I called Robert with shaking hands. "They're trying to intimidate you into backing down," he said. "Don't sign anything. In fact, this might work in our favor. This shows their desperation. I'm documenting everything." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Ethan's words. "You're going to die alone." Was I doing the right thing? Or was I just a bitter mother who couldn't let go? But then I remembered the debt. The stolen money from Morrison. The pattern of manipulation. I wasn't fighting for custody of my son. I was fighting to save him from a predator. The next morning, I took a sick day from work. I drove to a park across town and sat on a bench, staring at the lake, trying to find my center again. My phone rang. Patricia. "Don't argue with me," she said immediately. "You're coming to my house for the weekend. You're going to eat real food, sleep in a guest room, and not think about any of this for 48 hours. I'm not taking no for an answer." I started crying, not from sadness, but from gratitude. "Okay," I whispered. I spent that weekend at Patricia's house, letting her feed me soup and listening to her talk about her grandchildren and her garden and everything normal and uncomplicated. She didn't press me to talk about Ethan. She just gave me space to breathe. By Sunday evening, I felt almost human again, and I was ready for the next phase. On Monday, I returned to work with a clear head and a settled determination. The hospital, my patients, the familiar routines, all of it reminded me who I was. Not a victim, not a bitter mother. A woman who'd survived abandonment, poverty, and single parenthood. A woman who'd built a life through sheer will. Madison and her family had underestimated me. That afternoon, I received a text from an unknown number. "This is Madison. Can we talk? Just you and me? No lawyers, no drama. Please." I stared at the message for a long moment. Every instinct screamed trap. But I was curious. I texted back, "When and where?" "Coffee shop on Main Street, tomorrow at 2. I agreed. Robert was horrified when I told him. "Margaret, don't go alone. This could be a setup. She could record you, twist your words." "I'll record it too," I said calmly. "My phone will be in my pocket, recording everything, and I'll meet her in public. If she wants to play games, let her." The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. I ordered tea, found a table with a clear view of the entrance, and started my phone's voice recorder. Madison arrived exactly on time, looking immaculate in designer athleisure. She ordered some complicated latte and sat across from me, arranging her face into an expression of earnest sincerity. Margaret, thank you for meeting me, she began. I know things have been difficult. That's one word for it, I said evenly. She sighed, a practiced sound of regret. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I never meant to come between you and Ethan. He loves you so much, and I know how important you are to him. Empty words. I waited. The thing is, she continued, leaning forward, Ethan is stressed. The wedding was expensive, and we're trying to build our life together, and he's feeling pressure from all sides. He doesn't want to choose between his wife and his mother. He already made that choice, I pointed out. At the wedding, in front of 300 people. Her mask slipped slightly. He was overwhelmed. I was upset, yes, but I never wanted him to cut you off completely. That was his decision. Lies. All lies. What do you want, Madison? She sat back, recalculating. I want peace. I want us to be family. And I think I know how we can make that happen. Here it comes, I thought. The money you were going to give us, she said carefully. The $70,000. If you still wanted to give us that gift, not as control, just as a mother's love for her son, I think it would mean a lot to Ethan. It would show him that you accept our marriage, that you support us. You want me to pay you to let me see my son. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. I kept my voice calm, almost amused. You're holding my relationship with Ethan hostage until I hand over $70,000. That's extortion, Madison. Her eyes flashed. That's a very serious accusation. Yes, it is. Just like fraud is a serious accusation, and identity theft, and financial abuse. She went very still. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the $45,000 in loans Ethan has taken out in the past 2 months. Loans he probably didn't fully understand he was signing for. Loans that benefited your family's failing business. Madison's face hardened. The mask was gone now. You've been investigating me, she said coldly. I've been protecting my son. Your son is an adult who doesn't need your protection. He chose me. He loves me. And nothing you dig up or lie about is going to change that. I haven't lied about anything. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a hiss. Listen to me very carefully, Margaret. You can accept this situation gracefully. Give us the money you promised, and maybe we'll let you be part of Ethan's life in some limited capacity. Or you can keep fighting, keep making accusations, and I will bury you. I will make sure Ethan never speaks to you again. I will make sure everyone in this town knows what a vindictive, jealous mother you are. I will ruin you. I took a sip of my tea, completely calm. Are you finished? She blinked, thrown by my lack of reaction. Because here's what's actually going to happen, I continued softly. You're not getting a penny from me. Not now, not ever. And eventually, Ethan is going to figure out what you are. Maybe it'll take a month, maybe a year, maybe longer. But he'll see it. Because people like you always get greedy. Always overplay your hand. You're delusional. When that happens, when he comes to me, and he will, I'll be there. Not with money. Not with I told you so. Just with open arms. Because he's my son, and I'll always be his mother, no matter what you do. Madison stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. Several people looked over. You'll regret this, she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. You're mentally unwell, Margaret. Everyone can see it. She stormed out. I sat there for another 10 minutes, finishing my tea, letting my heart rate slow. My phone had recorded everything. When I got home, there was a package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a framed photo from Ethan's wedding. Madison and Ethan kissing, looking blissfully happy. Across the bottom Someone had written in permanent marker, "His real family now." I threw it in the trash. But I also forwarded the recording of my conversation with Madison to Robert, who sent back a single text. "This is gold. She just confessed to leveraging your relationship with Ethan for money." That evening, Patricia called. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay," I said. And I meant it. "Good. Because the ladies from our book club want to take you to dinner this Friday. We're worried about you, honey." I'd been avoiding my friends, embarrassed by the whole situation. But Patricia wasn't taking no for an answer. Friday evening, I found myself at a restaurant with 6 women who'd known me for years. They didn't pry. They didn't offer useless advice. They just surrounded me with warmth and normalcy. Susan, whose husband had left her for a younger woman, squeezed my hand. "You're stronger than you know, Margaret. And whatever happens, you're not alone." Linda, who'd lost her daughter to drug addiction, added quietly, "Sometimes loving someone means letting them make their own mistakes. It's the hardest thing in the world. But you can't save people who don't want to be saved." I cried then, but they were healing tears. I went home that night feeling fortified. Madison and Ethan could threaten, intimidate, manipulate, but I had something they didn't: real relationships built on years of trust and mutual support. And I was going to need those relationships for what came next. Because Madison wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. 2 weeks of silence, no calls, no drive-bys, no threatening letters. I almost started to relax. Then, on a Tuesday evening, my doorbell rang. I checked the camera feed on my phone. Ethan and Madison stood on my porch. But something was different. Ethan looked tired, haggard even. Madison was smiling, but it was her press-on, public smile. "Mom," Ethan called out. "Please, we just want to talk. No fighting. We're here to apologize." I hesitated. Every instinct said don't open the door. But he was still my son. And he looked defeated. I opened the door but left the security screen latched. "Say what you came to say." Ethan's eyes were pleading. "Can we come in? Please? I know you're angry, but we're not angry," Madison interrupted smoothly, placing a hand on Ethan's arm. A possessive gesture disguised as affection. "We're concerned. We've had time to think, and we realize there's been a lot of miscommunication." "Miscommunication," I repeated flatly. "Yes," Madison continued, her voice honey-sweet. "Ethan has been so stressed, and I've been protective of our marriage, and you've been going through something. We understand that." Going through something? As if I were the unstable one. "We want to start over," Ethan said earnestly. "Clean slate. We'll have dinner like a real family. You can get to know Madison properly. She's not the person you think she is, Mom." I looked at my son, really looked at him. He'd lost weight. There were dark circles under his eyes. His shirt was expensive but wrinkled. And when Madison squeezed his arm, I saw him wince slightly. "Where are you living?" I asked quietly. "We have an apartment downtown," Madison answered quickly. "Ethan's been working so hard to make it perfect for us." "I asked my son, not you." Madison's smile tightened. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "It's temporary," he said. "Madison's dad got me a position at the dealership, so I left my engineering job. The pay is really good once the commissions start coming in." "You quit your engineering job?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Ethan, you worked so hard for that position. You loved that work." "Things change, Mom. I'm married now. I have different priorities." Madison's priorities, I thought. She'd isolated him from his career, just like she'd isolated him from me. "May we come in?" Madison asked again. "This is awkward," talking through a screen door. Against my better judgment, I unlocked the screen. They entered my living room, the same living room Madison had looked at with such disdain months ago. Now she was all compliments. Oh, Margaret, your home is so cozy. Isn't it cozy, Ethan? We should spend more time here. She was playing a role. Badly. We sat, them on my couch, me in my armchair. Madison immediately started her performance. I know I haven't been easy to get along with, she said, her voice trembling with fake emotion. The truth is, I was scared. Scared that you wouldn't accept me. Scared that I'd lose Ethan to his past. I got defensive and said things I shouldn't have. I'm so sorry. If I hadn't known what I knew, I might have believed her. She was good. And the wedding? I asked. When Ethan called me a stranger? Ethan flinched. Mom, I was drunk and stupid. Madison was upset because she thought you were trying to control the day with that huge check, and I reacted badly. I've regretted it every day since. Have you? I asked softly. Because you sent me a letter threatening to sue me for harassment. That was my fault, Madison jumped in. My father is very protective, and he was worried about some of the things he'd heard. The things you told him, I interjected. The things I misunderstood, she corrected smoothly. I was emotional and scared, and I exaggerated. I know that now, don't I, Ethan? She looked at him expectantly. He nodded obediently. I felt sick watching it. This was textbook manipulation. She was rewriting history, making herself the victim, and Ethan was going along with it because he was trapped. So you're here to apologize, I said. Is that all? Madison and Ethan exchanged a glance. Here comes the real reason, I thought. Actually, Ethan said, we're in a bit of a bind financially. The apartment is more expensive than we thought, and my commissions haven't started yet, and we're not asking for charity, Madison cut in quickly, seeing my expression. We're asking for a loan. We'll pay you back with interest, every penny. We just need help with first month, last month, and security deposit. About $15,000? The audacity. You want me to lend you $15,000, I said slowly. After everything that's happened. It's an investment in our future, Madison said earnestly. In your son's future. And it would show Ethan that you really do forgive us, that you support our marriage. There it was again. My relationship with Ethan held hostage for money. No, I said simply. Ethan's face fell. Mom? No, Ethan. I'm not giving you money. Not as a gift, not as a loan, not as an investment. Madison's mask cracked. After everything we've done to mend this relationship. You've done nothing but lie, I said, my voice steel. You quit your engineering job, I looked at Ethan. How much debt are you in? That's none of your... Madison started. Ethan, how much? My son looked away, ashamed. About 60,000. But it's temporary, the commissions. There are no commissions, I said quietly. Her family's business is failing. The dealerships are being sued for fraud. You didn't get a job, Ethan. You got recruited into a sinking ship. That's a lie. Madison jumped to her feet. You've been spreading these vicious lies because you can't stand that Ethan chose me. I have documentation, I said calmly. Public court records, financial filings. Would you like me to show them to your husband? Don't you dare. But Ethan was already looking at Madison with confusion dawning in his eyes. The dealerships are being sued? Madison, you said your dad's business was doing great. It is. Your mother is making things up. I can pull up the court records right now, I said, reaching for my phone. Madison moved fast. She grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him toward the door. We're leaving. Ethan, she's trying to manipulate you. Can't you see that? Mom? Ethan looked torn, confused, almost childlike. I love you, I said, looking straight at him. And my door is always open. But I won't fund your wife's scams. Scams! Madison shrieked. How dare you? Come on, Ethan, now! She practically dragged him out of my house. On my porch, she turned back, her beautiful face twisted with rage. "You're going to regret this, you bitter old bitch," she hissed, low enough that Ethan, already walking to the car, couldn't hear. "I will destroy you. I will take everything you have, and Ethan will help me do it." Then she was gone, the door slamming behind her. I sat in my living room, shaking. Not from fear, although there was some of that, but from something else. Because for just a moment, when I mentioned the lawsuits, I'd seen doubt in Ethan's eyes. Doubt was a crack in Madison's armor, and cracks could widen. I called Robert. They just left. Madison threatened me again, but more importantly, Ethan didn't know about the lawsuits. He's starting to question things. "Good," Robert said, "because I have news. Andrew Morrison, the ex-fiancé, is willing to testify. And I found 2 more men that Madison was involved with. They're both willing to talk to Ethan if we can arrange it." "Do it," I said, "whatever it takes." That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. I kept expecting Madison to come back, to do something desperate. But as dawn broke, I felt something unexpected. Hope. Madison was losing control, and desperate people make fatal mistakes. The meeting happened at Robert's office on a Saturday morning. Neutral ground. Andrew Morrison arrived first, a quiet, well-dressed man in his 40s with sad eyes. Then came Marcus Trent, another of Madison's ex-boyfriends. Finally, Ethan. I'd called him the night before. "Please come. Just hear what these people have to say. If you still think I'm lying after that, I'll never contact you again." He'd agreed. Now, he sat across from me in Robert's conference room, arms crossed defensively. "Mom, who are these people?" "Ethan, I need you to listen with an open mind," Robert began. "Mr. Chen, these men have information about your wife that they believe you need to hear." For the next hour, Andrew told his story. How Madison had moved in quickly, isolated him, gained access to his bank accounts. When he'd noticed money disappearing, she'd threatened to accuse him of abuse unless he paid her $30,000. "I paid it," Andrew said. "I got a restraining order, but by then she'd disappeared." Marcus went next. Same pattern. Financial manipulation. When confronted, Madison vanished with $20,000 worth of his belongings. Robert laid out documents, bank statements, court records, the restraining order, photos of Madison with each man, looking exactly as she looked with Ethan. "This is her pattern, Ethan," I said quietly. "Find a decent man, love bomb him, isolate him, take what you can, move on." Ethan shook his head. "Madison loves me. We're married. She's pregnant." The room went silent. "She's what?" I whispered. "Madison's pregnant. We're going to have a baby." He looked desperate. "People change for their kids, right?" "Ethan," Andrew said gently, "Madison told me she was pregnant too. I paid for the abortion. She was never pregnant at all." "Tests can be faked," Marcus added quietly. "What doctor is she seeing?" I asked. "Have you been to an appointment with her?" Ethan hesitated. "She's going to schedule our first appointment together next month." "Next month?" "Always later. Ask her to take a test at a doctor's office today," I said. "If she's really pregnant, wonderful. If she's not—" He stood abruptly. "I need to think." "Check your credit report," Robert said. "Your bank accounts, just to be safe." Ethan left. That evening, he called. His voice was hollow. "I checked my credit report. 3 credit cards I didn't open. $32,000. Identity theft." I confronted Madison. She cried, said it was for wedding expenses. Then I asked her to take a pregnancy test at a doctor's office. He paused. She refused. Said if I really loved her, I'd believe her. Then she locked herself in the bedroom. "Where are you now?" "In my car. I don't know what's real anymore." "Come home." 30 minutes later, my son sat in my kitchen looking devastated. "I called you a stranger at my wedding. How can you even stand to look at me?" Because you're my son, and I love you." He broke down sobbing. I held him. "What do I do now?" "Now we call the police. We report the identity theft. We get you a lawyer, and we get you out of this marriage." The next morning, Ethan filed a police report. By afternoon, Madison knew. My phone exploded with her texts escalating from pleading to threatening. I blocked her. That evening, Madison appeared on my lawn, screaming, "Margaret Chen, you've stolen my husband! You've ruined my life!" I stepped onto my porch with my phone recording. "Madison, leave my property." "Ethan belongs with me. We're married." "Then sue me. Take me to court. Let a judge examine the evidence, the credit cards, the fake pregnancy, your history with Andrew and Marcus." She went still. Behind her rage, I saw fear. "You're bluffing. Try me." Police sirens. Madison fled. Inside, I finally let myself shake. It was done. Madison's mask had shattered. Ethan was safe. The divorce was fast and brutal. With evidence of identity theft, fraud, and Madison's documented history, Ethan's lawyer, Denise Keller, went for the jugular. Madison tried to fight. She claimed the pregnancy was real, but she'd miscarried from stress. She claimed the credit cards were a misunderstanding. But Denise was prepared. Andrew Morrison's testimony, Marcus Trent's testimony, bank records, police reports, and that video of Madison screaming on my lawn. "Your wife," Denise told the judge, "has a documented pattern of financial abuse spanning multiple relationships. This is criminal behavior." Madison's lawyer tried to paint Ethan as vindictive, influenced by his controlling mother. But it fell flat when Denise produced medical records showing Madison had never been to an OB/GYN and had purchased a fake positive pregnancy test online. The marriage was annulled within 60 days, not divorced, annulled, as if it had never existed. Fraud was the basis. The credit card companies removed the fraudulent debts from Ethan's name and went after Madison instead. She was facing criminal charges, identity theft, fraud, and forgery. The Whitmore family tried to make it disappear with money and lawyers, but the district attorney's office got involved. Madison had victims in 3 states. A pattern of financial crimes couldn't be swept under the rug. Madison took a plea deal. 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, restitution to all victims including Ethan, and a permanent record. David Whitmore's dealerships went into bankruptcy during the trial. The publicity brought renewed attention to the predatory lending lawsuits. The family lost everything. I should have felt triumphant, but mostly, I just felt tired. Ethan moved back home temporarily. He was a shell of himself, ashamed, depressed, struggling. "I threw you away for her," he said one night. "I called you a stranger. How can you forgive me?" "Because you're my son, and because you were manipulated. It wasn't your fault." "It was my fault. I chose to believe her over you. And now you're choosing to rebuild. That's what matters." Therapy helped. He got his engineering job back. His former boss understood and gave him another chance. 6 months after the annulment, Ethan was living in his own apartment, modest, affordable, no debt. He'd learned to check his credit monthly. He'd learned that love shouldn't cost you everything. We had dinner every Sunday. Ethan slowly rebuilt the relationships Madison had destroyed. One Sunday, he brought flowers, just because. "I've been thinking about the wedding, about what I said to you. Ethan, we don't need to. I need to say this. I told you that you were a stranger, that I chose my wife. But you were never a stranger. You were the one person who loved me unconditionally, who sacrificed everything, who stood by me even when I pushed you away." I had to sit down, tears streaming. "And when I was drowning, when I finally saw what Madison really was, you were still there. You didn't say, 'I told you so.' You just took me back. You're my son. I know. And I want you to know that I see you now. Not just as my mom, but as Margaret Chen. this incredible, strong woman who saved her stupid son from himself. We both cried, healing tears. Later, I sat in my garden watching the sunset. My phone buzzed, a news alert. Madison Whitmore Chen begins prison sentence for fraud. I didn't feel vindicated, just sad for everyone involved. But I also felt peace. My son was home, back in my life, back on a good path. And that $70,000? Still in my account. I set up the Margaret Chen Scholarship for children of single mothers pursuing medical careers. Ethan cried when I told him, "Mom, that money was supposed to be for me." "It is for you. It's making sure other kids like you get the same chances. That's a legacy worth more than a house." He hugged me tight. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby." Finally, everything was as it should be. 2 years passed. My life became richer than ever, not in money, but in what actually mattered. Ethan met Rachel, a kind architect with a young daughter named Emma. They dated for 2 years before he mentioned marriage. "After Madison, I trust your judgment more than my own," he told me. Their wedding was small and beautiful. When Ethan spoke his vows, he said clearly, "My mom supports me in everything, always has." I cried through the entire ceremony. I became Grandma Margaret to Emma. My house filled with her artwork and laughter. The scholarship fund grew. 3 students received full scholarships. Rachel announced they were pregnant. When baby Oliver was born, I was in the delivery room. Holding that tiny baby, my heart expanded in ways I didn't know were possible. My life was full. But what about Madison? She served 18 months in prison. When released, background checks flagged her everywhere. Her arrest record was public. A news station did a story. Romance scammer released from prison. Her photo was everywhere. The Whitmore family shattered. David's dealerships closed. He filed for bankruptcy, lost everything. Madison's mother divorced him and moved away, wanting nothing to do with her daughter. Madison cycled through minimum wage jobs, evicted twice. She tried writing a memoir as the victim. No publisher would touch it. She started a blog blaming everyone. It had maybe 50 followers. 5 years later, Madison tried contacting Ethan, claiming she'd changed. But her email hinted, "I heard you got married again." Still fishing for information. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "Block her," Ethan said. "I have a real family now." Eventually, she stopped trying. Last I heard, she was working at a call center, alone. I didn't feel triumphant, just sad someone wasted their life on cruelty. But my days were too full of joy. Emma's laughter, Oliver's first steps, Sunday dinners with real love. I had won by building something better. And that was worth everything. So that's my story. I learned that love without boundaries is enabling, that manipulation thrives in isolation, but truth always surfaces. Real wealth is the people who show up for you. If someone you love is being manipulated, refuse to fund it, gather evidence, stay ready. Real love builds you up, not tears you down. What would you have done? Given the money? Walked away? Fought? Leave a comment. Share this. Maybe it'll help someone else. Thank you for listening.